Hey guys, hopefully everyone is doing well. Today's target is to solve question number 1. As you have an idea, we have already solved question number 1, but part A was solved where we have completed our income statement for absorption costing. And now we will be looking forward for marginal costing, and again for margin costing we will be producing two different income statement as data is available for two different months. So as you have seen earlier, we have produced income statement over here for July and income statement over here for August according to absorption costing. Now we will create our income statement again, and this income statement first we have produced for absorption costing, and now we will be making for marginal costing. In the similar way, we will be doing income statement marginal costing, but for the month of August over here. Margin costing is little bit different. Its performa is different since in introductory lectures we have discussed it. Comparatively, when you will see your absorption costing, role of fixed cost is different as to role of fixed cost in margin costing. First element is sales, and first element in absorption costing was also sales. So no difference. Here you will create your unit, then per unit, and finally you will be writing amount over here. Again same, and this column would be used to calculate your amount as well. Here internal column, and this is your external column, and this is important. All of the amounts would be written over here, would be considered finalized amounts, and here we will be working accordingly. After sales we need to subtract variable cost over here, and we will get contribution margin, and then we will subtract our fixed cost, and we will get finally net margin. So this is the difference. And again, after contribution margin we will be putting fixed cost, while at the time of making statement according to absorption costing, fixed cost role was before gross profit or contribution margin, and now after contribution margin. So this is comparative statement. Another similar thing is you will be writing opening stock over here, then production would be added, production cost, and less closing stock, and there would not be any concept of under or over applied effort. So this way your statement would be completed. Okay, come over here to the question. We will be solving marginal costing according to July. Unit produced are 10,000. Here you will write number of unit 10,000, and then units sold 5,000. 5,000 units sold. Whatever is given in the statement we are picking and putting to their respective place. Fixed cost, fixed manufacturing cost 5 lakh. Now look at here, this is your fixed cost, so all fixed costs would be managed downward side, so that is why I have created a space here. First fixed cost is given in the question. Look at here, fixed manufacturing cost. Even it was your manufacturing cost, but it was fixed, so we have created this space over here. So fixed manufacturing cost or fixed cost would be written over here. Then we have unit selling price 500. Unit selling price is 500. Here it was your sales, and per unit amount of sales would be written over here. After 500, we have variable cost 250. So this would be written over here. Under absorption costing, what we have done, per unit variable cost and per unit fixed cost was added to be put over here. But now you will segregate and separate. Variable cost would be written above and fixed cost would be written at downward. And one thing left, amount of fixed manufacturing cost was 5 lakhs. So you will directly be putting over here in inner column 5 lakh is the amount. Okay. So now this per unit fixed overhead is not usable under marginal costing because total amount has directly been posted. In absorption costing, we were not putting 5 lakh rupees in our statement. So how did you do that? That 50 was indirectly added into per unit variable cost. So we had made that per unit cost as 300. We will make a comparative study after completion of this question. Okay. So what we have done 50, and then marketing overhead. Please focus. The word next to marketing overhead is fixed. So what we will do, we had segregated at above, we will be writing variable cost, and downward we will be putting fixed cost. This is the major difference between absorption and margin costing. In absorption, you were adding variable and fixed cost at above, and only selling and admin was written over here. So now segregated elements are variable and fixed cost. And since it has been said that these marketing expenses are also fixed, so what you will do, since they are fixed, they will come over here. Marketing expenses, why fixed cost is mentioned over here. All sort of fixed costs would be written downward. 120,000 is the amount, so marketing would directly be written over here, 120,000. And then we have administrative expenses 1,30,000. So you can put administrative or admin expenses, I think good enough. Admin expenses amount is 1,30,000. So put amount over here. So in this way, all fixed costs are segregated, all variable cost is also segregated. So this is beauty of marginal costing, to understand the clarity of elements. Okay, closing stock. Closing stock is still our own responsibility. It would not be given in the book, and you will have to decide by yourself whether there is closing stock present or it's absent. For that, you will see number of units you have produced were 10,000. Out of these 10,000, you were able to sell only 5,000 number of units. It means 5,000 are still in your hand. So closing stock would be 5,000. And since it's month of July, which is starting month, so there will not be any opening stock over here. As usual, I have told you in previous lecture, cost of production and cost of closing stock will be similar. So in the same way, the cost which we have used, per unit cost which we have used for production would be same for closing stock as well. So in this way, our statement has been completed and we are now open to write down the amount. The very first thing is sales. How do we calculate sale? Units are going to be multiplied by per unit. So here units are 5,000 and we need to multiply it with per unit cost, that is 500. In this way, total sales have been calculated. Come over here. Now please focus upon every element has its coefficient. That means first word or first sign has been written over here. So to calculate the total cost, we will follow these signs. In opening stock, we will add production, we will subtract closing stock, we will subtract fixed cost, and then we will finally be having our total cost. this fixed cost and this variable cost collectively be subtracted from sales. Please keep it in mind. I'm repeating it. This fixed cost and variable cost collectively be subtracted from sales, with which we can get our contribution margin as well as net margin. So hopefully you people would understand it. Let's calculate the opening stock. Since there are no units, opening stock is 0, and now we, to calculate production cost, we need to multiply units in per unit. Units of production are 10,000, which were given in the book, and 250 is per unit cost, again given in the question. So we have our total amount of production or total cost of production. We have got it by multiplying units and per unit. Again, to calculate amount of closing stock, units and per units are given. Units of closing stock 5,000, we have mentioned them by self, and then per unit cost of stock is 250. In this way, closing stock has also been calculated, but keep it in mind, sign of this closing stock is less. So whole variable cost is present over here. So what we will do, we will calculate it, we will sum or add it and mention over here with which variable cost section would be completed. So come here, and first was opening stock. You were in need to add production cost. Put sign of add. This is your production cost and then you need to subtract closing stock. Sign of negative, and this is your closing stock. So we have got our total variable cost. At this stage, we can calculate our contribution margin, and this would be, I was actually trying to, okay, this is not needed. So this is our contribution margin. Finally, we can calculate it. And how would we calculate? Variable cost completed, amount of sale completed. At this stage, this variable cost would be subtracted from sales. Variable cost would be subtracted from sales to get contribution margin. Amount of sale was 25 lakh, and we will subtract variable cost, which is 12 lakh 50,000. So we have got contribution margin. Half part is solved, and now we need to see how much total fixed cost is. This is your fixed cost. All of these three elements are coming under the heading of fixed cost. We will add them and we'll put over here, and finally we will subtract them. So first fixed cost 5 lakh, and then marketing expenses 1,20,000. After that we have administrative expenses 1,30,000. So we have got our total fixed cost. So after which we will now be calculating our net margin. It is actually net margin. And how do we calculate net margin? It is difference between fixed cost and contribution margin. Fixed cost, contribution margin. Your fixed cost is here, contribution margin. So what you will do, contribution margin and then subtracted fixed cost. So we have got our net margin, which is 5 lakh. Go to the book and you can see that it's B part. And for July marginal costing, answer is 5 lakh, and what we have seen for July, answer is 5 lakh. In this way, our first part has been completed. You can pause your lecture over here and please take a deep understanding of marginal costing. Since it is your first question, so it is important to understand the concept. Alright, after pausing, you can come again over here, and what we will do, same income statement would be calculated for the month of August. Units, and then per unit, after which you will write the amount, and again you will be putting amount collectively as well. Actually, this column was literally important for our calculation. Remaining everything we had written at inner column. Collectively, these amounts are important, which are written over here. In the similar way, for month of August we will be doing the same thing. The very first thing which we need is our sales, then we will subtract our variable cost. This variable cost would include opening stock, then we will add production cost, after which we will subtract closing stock. No under or over applied would be mentioned over here. This is your complete variable cost. This way we can calculate our contribution margin, after which we will subtract fixed cost, where every fixed cost would be written over here. Finally, we would be able to calculate our net margin. So this net margin would be calculated by subtracting fixed cost, and this contribution will be calculated by subtracting variable cost. Come to the question and we will follow this again. So for this you will be concentrated upon August. The very first thing provided is unit produced 5000. So you will be writing unit produced 5000 over here. Next is 10,000 units sold, unit produced 5000. Okay, so 5000 would be put over here, and then units sold 10,000. Units sold 10,000 would be over here. Fixed manufacturing cost is 5 lakh. As you can see, fixed element has been segregated and separated. So first fixed cost we have over here, fixed, but this is manufacturing cost, and that is 5 lakh rupees present. Okay, after fixed manufacturing cost, let's see what is unit selling price is 500. Sale price per unit 500. Again, let's go. After 500 we have 250 as variable cost. This is cost of production, 250, and we have fixed per unit fixed overhead 50, which is not usable in margin costing. We had used it in absorption costing. Then we have marketing expenses, which are also fixed, 1,20,000. So marketing expenses 1,20,000. These are also fixed marketing expenses. And why we have written over here what I have told you, these marketing expenses are part of fixed cost because it has been mentioned over here. And then we have administrative expenses, which are also fixed, 1,30,000. These are admin expenses. And what is next? Okay, our components have been posted and completed. We are now open to calculate further. We need to know if there is any opening stock. As earlier it was mentioned that if you have closing stock in previous month, you can see over here 5,000 units were sold, but 10,000 units were produced. In this way, out of 10,000 units produced, only 5,000 units were sold. So there was a closing stock of 5,000. So it was present at last date of July, and on first date of August, what will happen? These would be considered as opening because they were unused in the previous month. So we will use them here. So in this way 5,000 would be your opening stock, and their per unit cost is also 250. Whatever you will write over here, 5,250, same would be written over here. Now we will decide whether we do have closing stock or not. For this you will concentrate upon here. 5,000 was units were present at the starting of the period. You have produced 5,000. It means total 10,000 units were present in month of August, and we have sold 10,000 as well. 10,000 units were present and 10,000 units were sold. So how many units are still in hand? Nothing. So there will not be any closing stock. And since closing stock is 0, no need to mention its per unit cost. Everything is completed over here. We are now open to see our amounts. Amount of sale would be calculated in outer column. How we have units and per unit. Units of sales are 10,000 and we need to multiply it with per unit, which is 500. So put over here, total amount of sale has been calculated. Now we need to calculate opening stock. How? Units would be multiplied by per unit. Units are 5,000 and you need to multiply it with per unit cost 250. So we have opening stock. Then production cost again. To calculate the amount, we will multiply units and per units. Units 5,000 produced and multiply per unit cost 250. So here we have got our production cost. Closing stock is 0. So finally our variable cost is completed and we will follow these signs. Opening stock and then we will add production cost and we'll subtract closing stock. So here final amount would be calculated. Our opening stock was 12,50,000 and we need to add 12,50,000 production cost. Add is mentioned over here. Then we were in need to subtract closing stock, that is not present, so no need to write over here. So total variable cost has been calculated. It's time to calculate contribution margin, which is actually the difference between variable cost and sales, revenue and variable cost. Here you can see your total amount of sale is 5 million and you need to subtract your total variable cost, which is 25 lakh, 2.5 million. So we have calculated our contribution margin present over here, and this is your contribution margin. Okay. How did we calculate contribution margin? By taking the difference of variable cost and sales, after which contribution margin was calculated. And now we will proceed to our fixed cost, which is including three different elements. We will add them up to calculate our total fixed cost, 5 lakh, and then marketing expenses 120,000, and then administrative expenses 1,30,000. So here you have calculated total fixed cost. Okay, it's time to calculate your net margin, which is difference between fixed cost and contribution margin. Your contribution margin 2.5 million, 25 lakh, and you need to subtract, because here it has been mentioned fixed cost would be subtracted. Total fixed cost is 7 lakh 50,000. So what we have, net margin 17 lakh 50,000. Come to the question and you can see for August 17 lakh 50,000 is the answer, and we have put over here. The only column which is usable is here. Normally when you will see it's these statements for the bigger companies, you will only be looking at this column. So in this way, income statement for August has also been completed. We were following marginal costing. As at start of the lecture, I had mentioned that we will make a comparative study of absorption and margin costing. Here was our first part, absorption costing for July, absorption costing for August. Now please take the difference. Here cost of sale you have calculated, which was having both fixed cost and variable cost. I will mention over here, either it was variable cost or fixed cost. Both costs were added. How? You can see in your question, your variable cost was 250 and fixed was 50, 250 plus 50, 300. And in absorption costing, what you have done, you have made per unit cost as 300. Now come down. This is your marginal costing and you have segregated variable and fixed costs, and only 250 was used. It is a humble request to please focus upon this process, otherwise it would not be in your capacity to understand it well. Again listen, this is your absorption costing, where you have taken per unit cost as 300, This is your marginal costing where you have taken per unit as 250. Why? Because in absorption costing, fixed and variable cost was added. This was your variable cost. This was 250 was the variable cost, 50 was the fixed cost. This is your absorption costing. You have added 250 and 50 and written over here in absorption costing. And in marginal costing, only variable cost was mentioned over here. The second difference, you can see here, this fixed cost, 5 lakh. In marginal costing, you will not be able to see 5 lakh anywhere. Look at this. Nothing was mentioned over here and nothing was present over here. So as you have seen that 5 lakh of fixed cost was not present in absorption costing, but 5 lakh is present over here in marginal costing. It means when you will segregate variable and fixed cost in this way, so total fixed cost would be mentioned in marginal costing. In absorption costing, what you have done, instead of adding 5 lakh over here, what you have done, you have added per unit fixed cost over here, with which we have calculated fixed cost, but in not that way. In absorption costing, you will increase per unit cost, fixed cost would be added. And in marginal costing, you will separately mention your fixed cost. These are the differences which we are calculating. In absorption costing, only marketing and selling expenses were mentioned after GP. And in contribution margin, you have mentioned fixed cost as well, beside marketing and selling expenses. Another very important and contributing factor in marginal and absorption costing is this under over applied FH. Here you can see that we have calculated under applied FH. How did we calculate it? The total capacity of this organization was to produce 10,000 number of units, while actually we have produced only 5,000 in August. It means we have at under production, under capacity we have produced. So we are able to produce 10,000 units, but we have produced only 5,000 units. It means there is under applied production for fixed cost. And when you will go to marginal costing, no concept of under over applied is written over here. You can see we haven't even mentioned the name under over applied. So this was the third difference. Now please focus. Per unit cost was changed in absorption costing, and we haven't changed per unit cost in marginal costing. Fixed cost was not mentioned after gross profit, and fixed cost was mentioned over here. And third difference, under over applied was mentioned over here, but under over applied is not mentioned in marginal costing. So in this way, our question number 1 has been completed. It was having two parts. First two parts were for absorption costing, second two parts were for margin costing for two separate months. It is humble request to please focus upon this formula. Only these three lines are crucial. Remaining everything can be settled down, but you will have to focus upon here. This is statement for absorption costing, and similarly this statement. Just write down it, and it would be very helpful for making statement in future. If you will have complete concept regarding these statements, it would be easy for you. So, time for question number 1 has been ended. We have completed all of our solutions, 7,50,000 and 15 lakh, 7,50,000 and 15 lakh. You can see over here. And second answer, 5 lakh and 17 lakh 50,000, 5 lakh and 17 lakh 50,000. So it has been completed. We will surely be meeting for the solution of any other question in future. Up till then, please take care of yourself, and I'm requesting if you have any query regarding this solution, you are very open to message, text, or directly meet. You can comment as well. For the time being, we are taking off. It's time to say goodbye. Thank you very much for your time. Allah Hafiz.